Pelhřimov is a town located approximately halfway between Prague and Brno. It is known as the Gateway to the Highlands because of its location in the westernmost tip of the Bohemian-Moravian Highlands. The altitude is 498.63 meters above sea level at the foot of the tower of the Church of St.Bartholomew and 509.7 meters at the railway station. History. Early history. The earliest settlement, in the first half of the 13th century, was probably near St. Vitus Church and in Aunsieska Street. In 1289 it was raided by Vitek of Luberca. In 1290 King Wenceslas II granted Bishop Tobias of Bechyna a concession to renovate the town and fortify it with ramparts. The town was first settled mainly by German colonists. Gradually Czechs established themselves as the majority. In the Hussite Wars, Pelhřimov sided with the Hussites and even provided one of the spiritual leaders, Mikuláš Biskupek of Pelhřimov. The favorable position of the town, on the borderline of the domain of the Rosemarbergs and of the Lords of Kunstadt, was important after the upheavals ended and the reconciliation of the lords began. In 1446 to 1450 Pelhřimov was chosen as the venue of land diets, attended in person even by King Jiří of Poděbrady. Silver mining, in the vicinity of Kremsnik, aided the expansion of Pelhřimov. Many crafts flourished in the town: drapers and clothiers, weavers, dyers, gingerbread makers and brewers. In 1434 the town passed into the hands of the Lords Trcek of Lipa, who sold the estate in 1550 to Adam Rekinski of Rekeny, who built a castle in the immediate vicinity of the town ramparts. However, the lords of Rekeny did not reside at the castle for long. Adam's son Karol systematically interfered with the rights of the burghers and was involved in endless disputes with them. Finally, in 1572, the town bought its freedom. In 1596 Emperor Rudolf II elevated Pelhřimov to a royal town. The repressions that followed the uprising of the estates interrupted the promising expansion of the town. The disaster was completed by a huge fire in 1646, which laid waste most of the town's buildings. Paradoxically, Pelhřimov should now be grateful for the fires, because they contributed to the town's present homogeneity. Another devastating fire ravaged the town in 1766. Thanks to it, the town houses a uniformly Renaissance Baroque 19th and 20th century history. The national revival affected Pelhřimov, just as it affected all other towns in the country. Some of the patriotic associations founded during that period continue their activities until today. The Zaboj Choir was founded in 1862, Sokol in 1865, the Readers' Circle in 1874 and Riga, an amateur dramatic group, in 1894. The Salt House, built in 1707, was reconstructed as the National House and is today the Pelhřimov Theatre. The 19th century brought an expansion of industry, principally brush-making, hosiery, and the production of agricultural implements. In addition to these industries, there was a long tradition of brewing. Beer has been brewed in Pelhřimov since 1552, when the town was granted the privilege of doing so. At first the brewery was located in two houses in Rusova Street, on the site now occupied by the secondary industrial school. In the 16th century a new brewery was built in the moat behind the deanery. The third brewery, which today brews beer, called Poutnik, was built at the end of the 19th century, in an area called Národnosti. This lager-style beer is not pasteurized and contains no chemical additives. Pelhřimov has been the birthplace of many notable personalities, such as the painter and engraver Vojtěch Benedict Juhn, the sculptor and medalist Josef Sevnost, the historian Joseph Dobias, and Dean František Bernard Vanek. The town also has had many enthusiasts working for the protection of historical monuments. The Museum Association was set up in 1901 and 10 years later a local branch of the Club for Old Prague. Thanks to their activities, Pelhřimov has preserved its exceptional appearance, despite the loss of some outstanding landmarks, such as the Butcher's Hall, the synagogue in Rusova Street, or a Baroque granary. Pelhřimov preserved, however, some sections of the ramparts, including two huge Gothic gates which, together with the town houses of local burghers, the castle of the Lords of Rýchany, the theatre and the church, formed the town's historical precinct. Legend of the founding of Pelhřimov. Several legends exist about the founding of Pelhřimov. The following legend is one of many, which people passed on from generation to generation. The only fact backed by written documents is that in the years 1224 to 1225 the Bishop of Prague was Pelhřim of Wartenberg. According to one legend, Bishop Peregrinus, on his way to Rome in 1225 to 1226, stopped by the spring Belka and was so captivated by the beautiful country that he founded a town, to which he gave his name, Pelhřimov. To keep alive his memory, local burghers put his silhouette on the town emblem. Another version of the legend goes as follows. A very long time ago a settlement was established on a hillock in the neighborhood. The view into the countryside was excellent. People in the settlement knew about everyone that traveled on the nearby trade road. Unfortunately, the settlement was pestered by frequent unpleasant winds, and people had to travel long distances to the plain to fetch building material. Water was scarce too on the hillock. One day people from the settlement descended into the valley of the river Bela, and there, in the shade of a tree, they saw a man. "Who are you, pilgrim?" they asked him. "I am Bishop Peregrinus on my way to Rome." "And who are you? What are you doing here?" The people told him about the construction of the settlement and of the difficulties they were encountering. The bishop retorted, "Why don't you build the settlement right here? There is water, wood and fertile soil." Many settlers then began building again in the new place, in the valley. Later, when they talked about the name for the new town, they remembered the pilgrim's wise advice and in his honor called the town Pelhřimov. Artists in Pelhřimov. Pavel Janak, Joseph Izadnexevnostovi. Sites. Chateau of the Lords of Rýchany. Not much is known about the early history of the chateau. Originally, it may have been a Gothic construction of a tower-like character, probably from the 15th century. Some remnants have been preserved in the so-called Gothic hall on the ground floor of the chateau, showing that it was part of the municipal fortification system. New parts were added in 1550 to 1551, when Pelhřimov was owned by Adam Rychansky of Rýchany. After the Great Fire of 1561, this part of the chateau was incorporated into the extensive Renaissance structure, having 2 stories. After the fire of 1682, significant modifications were made in the Baroque style. The changes also involved the Salt Gate, and a new staircase and jail were added. In 1707 a salt house was built, which is now the municipal theatre, in the immediate vicinity of the chateau. The Great Fire of 1766 destroyed the chateau too. After the reconstruction, which was begun the next year, the chateau gained the appearance, which has survived to this day, in its original form. Between the years 1849 and 1907 it was the seat of the district court. Since 1908 it has housed exhibitions of the district museum. Church of St.Bartholomew. This Gothic building was founded in the late 13th or the beginning of the 14th century. Since 1589 the church exterior shell has been defaced with graffiti. The main Baroque altar and beautiful Calvary, designed by František Bilek, is inside the church. St. Vitus Church. It is the oldest church in Pelhřimov and the former parish church. It was originally built in the Gothic style, which is still evident in the presbytery. During the Hussite Wars, in 1422, Pelhřimov fell into the hands of the Taborites, and Utriquis masses were served here. The vaulting and walls of the church interior show scenes from the life and martyr's death of Saint Vitus, as well as allegories of faith, hope and charity. Nowadays the church is used as an exhibition and concert hall. Church of the Holy Cross. In 1671 the burgher and alderman Jan Krzysztof Blazejowski and his spouse Dorota had a small chapel built near the town. The structure consisted of an antechapel, chapel and a replica of the Holy Sepulchre. In 1865 the town council decided to demolish the structure and build a new church. Dean P. Wojciech Holy had been raising donations for several years. The project by the local builder J. Stecher was implemented between 1883 and 1886. The church, built in the neo-Gothic style, faces the town with a high tower. Chapel of the Virgin Dolores. In 1658 the Burgrave of Pelhřimov, Jan Eusebius, had a devotional pillar erected on this site. After Pelhřimov had experienced cases of alleged miraculous healing, accredited to the picture of Virgin Dolores placed on the pillar, a chapel was built on the site by burgher Tobias Grotzel in 1710 to 1714. The pilgrimage site was closed in the reign of Josephine. The crypt of the chapel used to be a burial place for members of burgher families. The town cemetery was transferred here from the Church of St. Vitus in 1787 and was used up to 1906. Lower Gatehouse. The gatehouse was built in the 16th century as part of the fortification system. It is a 5-storied construction, 36 meters high. In the gatehouse houses the Museum of Records and Curiosities, which was opened on June 30, 1994, as a unique institution of this kind in Central Europe and is run by the Dobrý den Agency. Upper Gatehouse. Just like the Lower Gatehouse, the Upper Gatehouse was built in the 16th century. They marked the way to Rhinerie. The clock was installed at the end of the 17th century. Fountain with the statue of St. James. The fountain in the square was first mentioned in 1546. The present-day appearance of the fountain dates back to the year 1848. On top of the column stands a statue of St. James, in a pilgrim's garment, decorated with shells and with a hat. Municipal Theatre. The original building, from 1707, was a salt house. In 1766 it burned down during a great fire and the salt house was moved to the granary. In 1882 foundations were laid for the town theatre. House of the Srečna family. The northwestern corner of the square is dominated by house number 10, named after the rich merchant Krzysztof Srečna. The house was built in 1614 in the Renaissance style. Currently, it houses a tourist information center and the memorial hall of the Lipski family. Farah House. This house has Baroque facade and a mansard roof. In 1913–1914 it was rebuilt under a project by the well-known Prague architect Pavel Janak in the Cubist style. Drexel's Villa. It was built in the Cubist style in 1912–1913 by the local builder Karol Postronecki, under the supervision of architect Pavel Janak for his councillor and district hetman Jan Drexel. Ruins of St. Anna. This chapel was founded in 1699 and originally was dedicated to the Transfiguration of our Lord. Under the communist regime it was demolished. Now there are only the perimeter walls. Population development. Present. Employment levels in Pelhřimov have not altered much since the socialist era. In recent years, the local economy has been focused on tourism. Festival Records and Curiosities was founded, which was typical of Pelhřimov. Related to this is the very popular Museum of Records and Curiosities, and also the Waterfront Records and Curiosities, a modified waterfront trail along the river Bela with information panels of various interesting records. The trail begins at the Museum of Records and Curiosities, and ends at the House of Good Days, containing the exposition of Czech golden hands, a unique features of the matches. In Pelhřimov there are many buildings in different architectural styles, therefore there is a trail of architectural styles. Other exhibitions in Pelhřimov are the Lookout Tower, the Museum of Bugaboos, Gallery M, the Museum of Vysočina, the Memorial Hall of the Lipsky family, Church of St. Vitus, and others. Services. The town has numerous restaurants and accommodation facilities. The largest hotel is the Recrea in Slovanskovo Bratství Street. Another major hotel, the Slavia, is in Masaryk Square. There are also a few guest houses. There is a theatre in the neoclassical building located on Solny Street. The only cinema in town, the Vesmír, is on the Třída Legí Street. In 2008 it was renovated to include digitized 3D technology. Vesmír is currently the most modern cinema in the Highlands. Several halls at the House of Marge can be used for cultural activities. Sporting facilities are good in Pelhřimov. Near the bus station there is a large sports complex with an ice stadium, athletic track, football pitch, tennis courts and swimming pools. There are 4 primary schools, a special school, a grammar school, a business academy, and hotel school, vocational secondary schools with a boarding houses, and other secondary schools. Economy. Pelhřimov is a relatively important industrial center, represented by the food industry, engineering and consumer goods manufacture. Food processing, especially crops grown and produced in the district, is common. Skrobany Pelhřimov processes potatoes. Milk is processed at a branch of the South Bohemian Dairies (MADETA) on Nidrazny Street. The Poutnik Brewery produces unpasteurized beer. The most important engineering firm is Agrostroj, which manufactures farm machinery. The United Kartakowny SPOKAR produces a wide range of products from brushes to toothbrushes. Statistics. Census 2001. Population 16,590. Nationality Czech 97.1%, Slovak 0.5%, Ukrainian 0.4%, Moravian 0.2%, Religion Faithful 41.2%. Economic activity, economically active 8,853, of which unemployed 3.5%, employed in industry 31.0%, in education and health care 14.4%, in business 9.8%, construction 7.9%, in public administration 7.8%. MVCR 2007. Population 16,596, of which proportion of men 48.8%, proportion of children under 15 years 13.9%, average age 39.6 years. Czech Statistical Office, the 31st of December 2008. Population: women 8,553. Since 2008 the population in the city increased by 131. Transport. Road transport. Pelhřimov lies at the intersection of two primary roads, I-19 Pilsen, Breznice, Tabor, Pelhřimov, and I-34 Czech Budějovice, Jindřichov Hradec, Pelhřimov, Humpolek, Brod, Svitavy. The D1 runs 15 kilometers north of the city to the Humpolek exit 90. Buses. Pelhřimov had extensive bus services from before 1989. In 2008 a new building was built. An important route is Brno, Jihlava, Tabor, Strakonice. Another is the connection to the eastern metropolis of South Bohemia, Czech Budějovice route, Hradec. Rail transport. Pelhřimov railway station is located 1.5 kilometers south of the railway station square in an industrial part of town. Urban bus services. Urban bus services are provided by ICOM Transport Jihlava. There are 4 lines. Lines 1 and 3 provide the main transmission lines. Lines 2 and 4 are feeders. Outlying areas. Pelhřimov's area of 95 kilometers squared is one of the largest for a city in the Czech Republic. Villages and communities have been integrated for 80 years, which are part of the city and are more than 10 kilometers distant. The extent of the city includes 24 areas in 4 separate units: Benátky, Bytetis, Kakovice, Hodějovice, Housruka, Chovnov, Janovice, Dilkovy Lodky, Kokorovy Lodky, Lesov, Lipis, Myslotn, Namorja, Ostrovek, Pidgstuff, Pelhřimov, Pobystris, Raditn, Radnov, Rybniček, Skrysov, Sluzatky, Stary Pelhřimov, Strumchi, Utekoviky, Vlasinice, Drabolavy, Vlasinice. City personalities. Mikulas from Pelhřimova, theologian, preacher, writer, a Tabor bishop. Vojitek Benedict Juhn, painter. Edward Jan Brinage 19. Bishop of Hradec Králové. Joseph Rijsek, painter. Emmanuel Julian Kodat, sculptor. Joseph Dobias, historian and classical philologist, member of the Academy of Sciences. Simonetta Buonacini, poet. Lubomir Lipsky, actor. Jiří Elia, actor. Oldřich Lipsky, film director and screenwriter. Dušan Tomasek, journalist, columnist and non-fiction writer. Marie Hovorkova, actress. Olga Valeska, writer. František Vyskočil, neurophysiologist. Petr Fiala, composer, choir director and musician. Jan Kirka, Summer Olympics gold medalist. Svitava Slajkurtova, poet. Vratislav Kriz, opera singer, soloist of the National Theatre in Prague. Jiří Černý, art historian. Jan Smid, journalist and writer. Jiří Novotny, ice hockey player. Tomas Savic, football player. Vaclav Muratsky, successful participant in the International Olympiad of Physics, Kazakhstan 2014. Sister cities. Dolní Kuban, Slovakia. St. Valentin, Austria. Waddinxveen, Netherlands. Tourist service. Lookout tower. From the 30 meters high tower there is a great view on Pelhřimov and the surrounding landscape. There is a belfry, with historic photographs of Pelhřimov, in the top part of the tower. The bells together weigh over 4 tons. Museum of Bugaboos. A unique display of bugaboos occurring in the Bohemian-Moravian Highlands in the past, as well as at present. The exhibits are mostly made of wax and are life-size. The museum is in the cellars of the former Burgrave S House, number 17, Masaryk Square. Museum of Records. The Museum of Records is one of the few institutions of its kind on the continent, and the only one in Central Europe. It is housed in an historical gatehouse which in the past served as part of the fortifications of the town, and was called Jihlava Brana. thanks to collectors and makers of all possible and impossible things, and unrivaled collection, unseen anywhere else in the world, has been collected in the 5 newly reconstructed stories of the exhibition. There are mini-sized as well as giant objects, strong men and tumblers, makers of endless puzzles, and daredevils jumping from 80 meters. Golden Czech hands. The exhibition, located in the House of Good Days, is unique in the world. Tomáš Korda from Erchlaby has spent 40 years of his life making these objects. During an unbelievable 63,310 hours of work, he has made dozens of buildings using an incredible 820,215 matches and match heads. Museum of Vysočina Highlands. Museum Pelhřimov focuses primarily on issues of regional history and ethnography. The first section of the exhibition is devoted to 2 important personalities, Sevnosta Joseph and his son Zdeněk Sevnosta. The second section focuses on middle-class life in the 19th century, the culture, clothing, housing and social life. The third section is devoted to the town hall and city jail. Memorial Hall of the Lipsky family. Pelhřimov has paid tribute to its famous natives by establishing the Commemoration Hall of the Lipsky family, which was set up in the ground floor premises of House No. 10 in Masarykovo Square, the so-called Srejnerovsky Dom, house of the Srejna family, of the Lipsky family. Most people especially remember Oldřich Lipsky, the director, and his brother Lubomir, the actor. Much work for theatre and television has also been done by other members of this famous dynasty of artists. The exhibition is divided into 3 parts. The first one gives information about the Lipsky brothers' lives and work. The second part of the exhibition is devoted to movie making. There is a cinema where you can see a sample of the Lipsky brothers' best-known movie scenes. The third part is named after the film Velká filmová lupa, made by Oldřich Lipsky. This project has been realized with financial help from the Vysočina Fund. Church of St. Vitus, one of the oldest buildings in Pelhřimov. Photo gallery.